Hi, welcome back to the Basics of Vector Drawing. This is episode 3. Today we're going to learn some new tools. We're also going to explore vector tracing. Vector tracing, if you're a designer, if you're a printer, screen printer like myself, you're going to be using vector tracing a lot because in this day and age, people are going to send you low resolution images that they want printed and they look fine on the monitor. And if you ask them for vector artwork, 9 times out of 10 they won't know what you mean, so it's easier to just trace it and move on with the project. So let's get started. But first I'm going to teach you a new tool. Just draw a simple rectangle here. We're going to learn the rotation tool and how to use it and what it does. When I want to rotate an object, I can double click it. The first one selects it, the second click brings up these rotating arrows. Now you see this, I don't know if you can see this right here. This is my fulcrum, which is the point about which this object will rotate. So I can do it manually by catching one of these arrows here and just rotating it to wherever I want. I can also come up here to this little window, and this is my degree of rotation. So I can select the number of degrees that I want this object to rotate. So if I select 45 up here, hit enter, it will rotate 45 degrees. Now remember, I mentioned the fulcrum. That's not a fixed fulcrum. It's always going to appear in the center of the object at first, but you can move this like this to wherever you want. Wherever I put it, if I put it down on this corner, now my object's going to rotate from that corner, you see, because the fulcrum is over there. And that is very useful when you're trying to position an object, because if you try and do it from the center, sometimes it throws off the other side. But if you're whatever you happen to be doing, you want it to rotate to a specific place on a specific fulcrum. So just keep in mind that this fulcrum can be anywhere you want. It can even be out here. See what that does. See, now this object is rotating around that fulcrum no matter where I put it. Let's learn another rotation tool. I'll start with a big circle here, and let's pretend we want to draw a clock. As you can imagine, it would be a little bit difficult to try and space the numbers yourself, but if we have the rotation tool, we can do something like this. I'll start by drawing a little rectangle like this. Make it red. And kind of move it over here. And then, if you remember, if we select both objects, I can click my C key and get it aligned perfectly. Or I can go up to Arrange, Align and Distribute. We learned that in the last one. Now I want to rotate this and I want to duplicate it. So I'll get a double click going. I'll take my fulcrum down here. Now I have Snap to Objects enabled, which we'll learn more about that later, but I don't always have that tool enabled because I don't like it all the time, but there's certain reasons to use it. You can see what this does is, as I get to the center, it wants to lock that fulcrum right in the center, which is where I want it to be. Now, I came over here and to Arrange, Transformations, Rotate, which opens up my transformation menu, and which I did while I was on pause. And we want to rotate this. Rotation, angle. I did the math. 360 degrees would get us all the way around to the top. And we want 12 numbers, so 30 degrees. 3 times 12 would be 36, so it's mathematical. I'm going to rotate this 30 degrees right here, angle, around this fulcrum. And right here, I can either apply it, which will move it, or I can apply it to a duplicate, which will create a new object 30 degrees rotated from the second one. So let's see what happens when I do that. There's that. 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Now we have our clock with perfect spacing. I could put numbers here if I want. We won't go through that because you can probably figure out how to do that yourself. But that's the rotation tool, and it's a tool you're going to use very often for a lot of different things. So now let's get into the actual part of the course here. We're going to learn to trace an object. We're going to use let's do this tribal style tattoo, whatever this is. And I picked this particular shape because it uses cusp and smooth nodes, which we learned about before. And as you can see, it's low resolution. This wouldn't look good if you printed it. It doesn't even look very good on the monitor. So what I would do is trace this as a vector object. So let's get started and see how we might recreate this. I'm going to go up here to remember the pen tool and the Bezier tool. You can use either one. I'm going to use the Bezier. I prefer that. And I'm going to use a thicker line than normal because I want you to be able to see this on the video. Okay, I've got my cursor here. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start my shape. I'm going to come around here and kind of look at this curve and see about how far I think I can go with one curve. Put a node there. Now you want to use as few nodes as you can in order to keep your curve as smooth as possible. There's a little bit of a dip here, so I'm going to come over here. I think I can get to about there. And maybe a little farther. I think I'm going to go to about here. This will make sense in a minute. I'll come down here, and where it changes direction, I'll put a node there. I'll put another one on tip. I'm just going to draw this one piece of it first. Put a node there. Put a node there. Now here's where you can get a little confused because your nodes are going to start crossing over each other. Just keep track of where you're putting them. Put one there. Of course there. Wherever there's a cusp, you do want a node. One thing I've learned over the years is when you put one node across from another one, they want to be pretty much exactly opposite. You don't want one node down here and one node down here. So anyway, I'm going to just keep shaping this out. I'm pretty sure I can get all the way around here with one more. Now see, it's starting to get a little confusing, so don't lose track. One there. And my last one there, and that completes my closed curve. I'm going to go to my shape tool, right, second one down. I'm going to marquee select these, which selects all of them. And I'm going to change this to curved lines right here. And I want to make sure that they're all cusp nodes, which makes it much easier to draw. We're going to convert some of them to smooth later, but for now they're cusps. It's hard to say. Okay, let's remember what we did here. This line here goes from there to there, so I'm going to drag it to where it belongs. Now follow me along. I'm just going to do it roughly for now. We're going to shape this out in a minute. Put all these curves roughly where they belong on the shape. This doesn't have to be perfect for now. Okay, this little piece here where it takes a little dip, and this one goes up here. This goes out here. Now since we're using cusp nodes, it's very easy to shape each segment by itself. If you remember, when it's a smooth curve, you shape here and it goes, this end does something else. So We're going to convert these later, the ones that need to be converted. But for now, we're just shaping this out using Cusp. That's hard to say. Cusp nodes. Okay. Now I'm going to teach you another tool here. We're going to fill this with orange. I'll show you why we're using orange. Because that's the color that shows up the best, in my opinion, against something black. So it's kind of hard to see what I'm doing because you can't see anything. So we'll learn a new tool, and that is the transparency tool. It's over here on this little flyout. It looks like on this version of CorelDraw, this is X3, so it's about 15 years old. Obviously, there are new versions, many more. I think we're up to about X8 now. I really like X3. I don't know why. Maybe because I'm old. I've been using it for about 15 years since it first came out. I'm reluctant to upgrade, but I do have X6, which is already obsolete. But all the tools are pretty much the same. I did try out X8, and this wine glass is changed to something else, but it's still the same tool. Interactive transparency tool. Now, since I have my object selected, I'm going to come up here to this little menu here, none. That means it's not transparent. I'm going to give it a uniform transparency. Now I can see through it. And this little slider here adjusts for more transparency or less. Now this is a tool you can be really creative with. You're going to use it for a lot of things. For now, I'm just using it so I can see what I'm doing. So I want it about there, and now you can see the orange is a good color to stand out against the black. So now I can begin to shape this out a little more accurately to see if I can get it to match. Once I get my curve as sharp as I can using the drag method, I can use these arrows to shape it out more accurately. See these arrows here? Adjust your curve till you can get it to the point where it's just right. This one needs quite a bit of work here. I'm going to shape it out. I'm not going to work real hard on this because it's for the video. If I was doing it for a customer, I would take more time to get it just right. But for now, this is going to be fine. So just keep shaping it out. Take your time. Get it just right. That's pretty close right there. Remember, these are all cusp nodes. It's hard to say. So it's very easy to shape it independent of the other side of the curve. Right there, that follows around pretty close. Right there. We'll bring this in a little bit. Just right there. I think that's okay as is. Now, remember that these nodes here, these should be cusps on the points. These ones here should be smooth curves. So let's convert them. I can either select one and click my C key, which moves it from cusp to smooth and back and forth, or I can marquee select these by dragging my cursor and then coming up here to my smooth curve menu, and that converts them to smooth. You can see it jumps a little bit. That one should be smooth. These three here should be smooth, and I think I got them all. Nope, there's one there. That should be smooth as well. You can tell if it's smooth because it grays out the smooth thing. Okay, now that they're smooth, I can further work on this if I am so inclined. But I think I'm going to leave it. It's close enough as it is. And remember, now that they're smooth, it's much harder to shape out. Because when you move this arrow, that one's going to move too. So you have to be real careful here. And I'm going to say, this one's a cusp, so it's easy. I'm going to say that's pretty close right there. It's not perfect, and I could work harder on it if I wanted to. For now, I'm going to leave it for the purpose of the video. Oh, since I'm a perfectionist, I might try this a little bit harder. But anyway, let's draw this second half of the design a little faster. Using the same technique with my Bezier. Don't worry about where it goes behind, we'll fix that. Just draw the thing out right there. Bing, bang, pow. That's a little Joe Pesci there. And I think I can do this in one curve, so all the way back. Now, once again, don't get confused about what you just did. Marquee select these nodes like that. Like that. Curves, cusp, very important. And just shape this out the same way. Do it a little faster than we did before. Time is money. You want this on press. You don't want to be fooling around with it all day. Okay. Right there. Right there. Now that's a little sharp. I'm going to have to use my arrow keys. So, once again, we'll give it a fill. We will get rid of the outline. And we will give it a transparency. Uniform. We'll bring it down to about there so we can see it. And shape it out. There. Right there. If I can't get it, I can add a node in the middle, but always use as few nodes as you can because that will result in a smoother curve. So before you give up and add a node, keep trying to see if you can get it. Alright, good enough, good enough, good enough. Remember, these are all cusp nodes, so it's easy to shape. Okay, I'm going to leave it here because I don't want this video to be too long. You'll turn it off. Watch something else. So let's just rough this out. That's close enough for what we're doing. And once again, we're going to convert these to smooth curves. Nothing here, nothing here. Everything's good. Close enough. There we go. There we go. All right, leave it. Now that it's smooth, it's very touchy here. You have to be careful. All right. Let's move it off of our original. Ding, ding. See what we're doing here. At this point, I'll get rid of the transparency. Select both of these. Go back to my transparency tool, get it to none. And we'll turn it black so it looks like the original. Remember, these are two objects. And obviously one's supposed to look like it's behind the other. So the easiest way to do that is with an outline. Now if I change this to red just for a moment, you can see that since I drew this object second, that one's actually behind it. But we want it in front. So I'm going to go to this arrange up here. Order, right there, to front of page. Order, to front of page. And that brings it in front of the black. That's another tool you're going to use all the time. Arrange, order. You can move it back to the back. You can move it back one. You can do a lot of things with order. All right. Change it back to black. And I'm going to give it a white outline. Once again, that's my right mouse button. Gives it a little outline there, which is 2 points. That doesn't look thick enough, so I'm going to open up my outline flyout, which is down here, or F12. And I'll make it, let's make it 6 points behind fill, if you remember that. That keeps the original shape intact because the outline's behind it. And I'll give it a round corner, but that's not going to really matter here. And that looks pretty much like the original. Now you could just leave it at that, or if you wanted to simplify this a little bit, here's something else you can do. Arrange up here. This is where we have convert outline to object. And select that. Now it's not an outline anymore. It's an independent object which I can give a fill to. I can move it where I want, just to show you what that does. What I'm going to do with it in this instance is I'm going to select it. I will go to my shaping tool, arrange, shaping. And we learned this tool before, the trim tool. Trim, I'm going to trim that thing and then get rid of my outline. And now this is a shape. You can see there's some of it left behind where I trimmed. So let's get rid of that. I'll show you how. Front. I'm going to go to my shape tool. I'm going to select these nodes and just delete them. Now it's gone. And that's that. So now this is separate and it's all by itself. And if you want to, you can combine these or weld them together. Or if you might want them to be different colors, whatever. You can just leave it that way. Okay, that's the, let's get rid of some of these menus here. Alright, that's the trim tool, and that is how you make one object look like it's over another. The last thing I'm going to do with this is sort of eyeball it. Now, we sort of matched exactly the original, but there's parts of this I'm not really pleased with, particularly right here. I don't like this curve. So to me, it's more important to make it look good than it is to make it look exact, because you're not going to be able to compare it exactly like we did. So what I want to do is get this curve out here a little bit, make it look a little more pleasing, like that. This I could do the same thing. You know, just use your artistic eye to make it look smooth and maintain the integrity of the flow of the curve. That's something you may or may not want to get into. Just make it look a little better rather than be exactly a trace. Now, I could work on a lot harder on this. I'm still not real happy with it. But now you have learned to trace with all of your nodes, all of your node styles, and this is a good object to learn with because it uses both kinds of curves, both kinds of nodes, and when you do it wrong, it really looks bad, and when you do it right, you can really make it look good. So if you want, just copy this off the video and paste it and do the same thing. It's going to take you a little while at first, but you're going to be good at it before you know it. And then next time a customer sends you a low resolution bitmap, you'll just deal with it. I'm going to leave it there for now. I appreciate you watching this video. If you liked it, please click subscribe. We're going to do a few more of these. And before you know it, you'll be drawing like a pro. Thanks again. I'll see you next time.